Here's a handy tip for freedom fighters. The majority doesn't win, the culture wins. Look at this. Here's a picture of the presidential election map for 1972, the election between incumbent President Richard Nixon and George McGovern. Nixon won in a tremendous landslide. He took every state except Massachusetts, and McGovern also won the District of Columbia. Nixon also took more than 60% of the popular votes, nearly 61%, a whopping 18 million more votes than the challenger. Now, here's a picture of some hippies the same year. There weren't really very many of these guys. Their program of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, dropping out and getting high, and some garbage about the age of Aquarius was a childish and irresponsible nonsense, almost a perfect prescription for a useless and unhappy individual life and for forcing a heretofore vibrant country into decline. As I say, there weren't a lot of them, but ask yourself this. Who won over time? The majority that elected Nixon or the tiny minority that believed in promiscuous sex, legalized marijuana, socialism, foul language, and disrespect for our traditions and founding principles? Even we, the conservatives I'm talking to and the conservative who's talking, are in some ways more children of the hippies than of the people who voted for Richard Nixon. Polls mean nothing. Majorities mean nothing. Facts and logic, morality mean very little. Culture means everything. Culture is that mysterious intellectual atmosphere we don't even know we're breathing. Today, the philosophical descendants of the 60s radicals are selling a psychopathic culture of death and pseudo-virtuous dishonesty. And if you think the polls and the majority and the facts are on our side, just remember, majorities don't win. Culture wins. What do I mean when I talk about the culture? The culture, it's, when we ever talk about the culture, we devolve into talking about movies and TV, and that's part of it. It definitely is. All the arts contribute to the culture. But it's more than that. It's the Overton window, which is what what is acceptable to discuss and debate. That moves around, right? People can move the Overton window in a lot of different ways. It's also the way we behave. I mean, do you go to church? Do you smoke dope? Do you sleep around? All of those things. And, do you speak up fearlessly for the things you believe and promote the things that you believe as a way to the good life? Not by getting in people's faces and screaming at them, but just saying this is a way to the good life. Let's look at this week. I mean, the way that the Overton window has changed in terms of abortion and what you're allowed to say. I don't want to beat a dead child, as it were. But yesterday we're talking about the abortion bill that lost. It lost in the Virginia House of Delegates. But this was a bill, an infanticidal bill, a psychopathic infanticidal bill. That's what it was. And we showed that delegate, Kathy Tran, I believe her name was. She was being questioned about it and how late you could do it. And basically you could abort a child on the grounds of mental health, right? What does that mean? That kind of depresses me to have a baby. Like you could abort it in the moments of birth. The governor then went on radio to explain himself, because he's a Democrat governor, Ralph Northam, and he was asked about that, and he just dug the hole even deeper, essentially supporting infanticide. Here he is.
We talk about third trimester abortions. These are done with the consent of, obviously, the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion. But again, we want the government not to be involved in these types of decisions. We want the decision to be made by the mothers and their providers. And this is why, Julie, that legislators, most of whom are men, by the way, shouldn't be telling a woman what she should and shouldn't be doing with her body.
So that you heard the whole left-wing array of arsenal right there. It's consent. Right? So, you want to kill your 4-year-old child. This is not something the government should get into. If you want to kill your 4 or 5-year-old child, he's being a pain in the neck. Maybe he's got ADHD. Do you want that poor child to live with ADHD for the rest of his life? No, of course not. It should just be, the government should not get involved. If you have consent, you should be able to strangle that kid and dump his body in the trash. I mean, that's just the way, basically, that's the argument he's making. He's just making about someone a little bit younger than that. So it seems, I don't know why it seems to him. By the way, this guy's a pediatrician. electrician, and he got very upset when people attacked him. It's disgusting. I've worked for children all my life. He is putting forward a psychopathic idea. That is the idea. He's not a psychopath. It's the idea that is a psychopathic idea. And what was the other thing? Oh, you're a man. You're a man, so you can't talk about this. You can't talk. And what if he had deformities? And the one part of the arsenal, the one part of the left-wing arsenal I left out is silence. The power of silence is the power of lies. If you wonder why I'm for free speech, even for people I dislike or even hate and disagree with strongly, it's because the power of silence is the power of lies. Lies live in silence. All three networks did not cover what you just saw. All three of them. They dumped it out, according to Newsbusters. All three of them did not cover it. Of course, CNN and MSNBC buried it, but we expect that from them. Fox did Brett Baer on Fox did a whole segment on it with his panel and covered it in the news. But they were on the panel, I think it was Mark Thiessen, really smart guy, very bright and very passionate about this. But he's citing the fact that this is unpopular. He was citing a Marist Knights of Columbus poll, which showed that only 15% of America support abortions at any time during pregnancy. 74% of respondents wanted some kind of restriction on abortion, such as first trimester, rape, incest, and so on. Very few people support third trimester, and probably if you were talking about what he was talking about, that was infanticide. He said the baby could be born, and if they decided... Lord, I'm only laughing because it's so nuts. If you don't laugh, you cry. I mean, he's basically saying you can leave it there to die. What I'm telling you is it doesn't matter what the polls say. It doesn't matter what the polls say. He has moved the Overton window to where a governor of a state can talk about murder, legalized murder, and people just say, fine. And I know so many liberals, and they all say the same thing. Whenever I talk about the radicalism in the Democrat Party, the liberals all say, well, most of my friends don't agree with that. Most of my friends don't. It doesn't matter. It's not how many people. It's where they are and what they do and how they change the culture and whether you speak up. Because if you're sitting there going, well, I don't agree with that, but I'm voting for him. I'm voting for him because, that's radical. See, he won't get away with that. Then you just made that acceptable. If you vote for a guy like that, in fact, if you vote for his party, as far as I'm concerned, you have made that statement acceptable. It is all right if all the doctors agree and the mother agrees and men don't get a say, because what have they got to do with humanity? It's all right to leave that baby to die. If you vote for that, that's acceptable talk to you, if you're not outraged, you're part of the movement of the culture in that direction. It does not matter whether you agree or disagree. It doesn't matter what the polls say. It matters that you allow that atmosphere, like poison, like miasma, to seep into the culture and people breathe it in. And the next generation of people sitting here will go, the majority didn't want to be killing children, but somehow here we are all killing children. I killed mine, but it's different. I disagreed with it. I thought it was wrong. It's just in the same way I don't wear a tie. In the old days, of course, I would have been wearing a tie, but the 60s culture won. It's even I use a lot more foul language than I think is right. Because the 60s culture won. The culture is dominant. It dominates everything. So I'm just talking about the way that these things affect the culture almost without you knowing it. And this silence thing is a big, big deal. I mean, there was a story out of Britain that the guys here pointed out to me. A man said he was questioned by police for over 30 minutes after he liked a tweet that appeared to mock transgender community. He liked the tweet. Harry Miller, who believes trans women are not women, says the formal probe by Humberside police was into his thinking and his reasons for liking the limerick on Twitter. The limerick referred to trans women as stupid and made comments about vaginas and synthetic hormones. Harry Miller said police wanted to know his thinking for liking the limerick. Mr. Miller, who used to be a policeman himself, says an officer told him he was investigating reports of a hate crime. The cop said this is a quote, the cop said he was in possession of 30 tweets by me. I asked if any contained criminal material. He said no. I asked if any came close to being criminal, and he read me a limerick. Honestly, a limerick. A cop read me a limerick over the phone. After telling the cop he did not write the limerick, he reportedly said, but you liked it and promoted it. Harry Miller said he was questioned over the phone for over 30 minutes. He concluded it's not a crime. The cop said it's not a crime, but it will be recorded as a hate incident. Why? Because transgender women aren't women. That's why. And the only way you can maintain that fallacy is if you silence people who disagree. I'm not in favor of hating people for their picadillos. I'm not in favor of hating people for their problems. But why do you have to have the silence? It's because it's not true. The power of silence is the power of lies. And that has a big effect on the culture. What you don't say. This is why this guy, Howard Schultz, the Starbucks guy who's been talking about running as an independent, not running in the third party. This is why he's driving the Democrats crazy. I mean, they're afraid he'll split the vote and let Trump win again. But there's every reason to believe he might split the vote and let the Democrats win. I mean, anything could happen, really. I mean, everything is so up in the air. Here is his announcement. I mean, look how quickly people reacted to this. Here's his announcement that he made. I think it was in a bookstore. This is that really short clip.
I am seriously considering running for president as a centrist independent. And I wanted to clarify the word independent, which I view merely as a designation on the ballot.
Don't help elect Trump, you egotistical billionaire.
I mean, that's the level of rage you're getting against. See, the thing is, the Democrats think that Trump is a crisis, right? And you know how the Democrats think never let a crisis go to waste, because when people panic, you can push anti-freedom moves on them, like Obama did, basically, because of the panic over the financial crisis. And Rahm Emanuel said, we don't want a crisis to go to waste. And that's how they crammed that stupid, lousy health care bill down people's throats in a completely non-bipartisan vote. So here's Schultz talking about why he does not identify as a Democrat. And this is part of the reason why he has to be silenced. This is cut one.
I'm not a Democrat. I don't affiliate myself with the Democratic Party, who's so far left, who basically wants the government to take over health care, which we cannot afford, the government to give free college to everybody, and the government to give everyone a job, which basically is $40 trillion on the balance sheet of $21.5 trillion. We can't afford it.
We can't afford it. This is, remember, one of the things, a lot of people have commented on this, one of the things that the Democrats do so well is label things, make up names for things. Oh, you're objectifying women. Oh, it's racial profiling. Things that are perfectly normal, they make sound evil. And things that are not very good, they make sound good, like a woman's right to choose, a woman's right to choose. Killing babies is a woman's right to choose. They're just great at this because that's how the culture works. Culture doesn't work on what you're doing. It works on what you think you're doing and how you feel about what you're doing. And what he's talking about, they have come up with this wonderful idea, Medicare for all. Medicare for all. People like Medicare. People like things that everybody gets. So Medicare for all, great selling point. It's government health care, and government health care is bad everywhere, and everything about it that works because we subsidize it from our country where it takes place in other countries by paying more for medicine and by having a military, paying for a military that they don't have that can protect them, that keeps them safe. So they don't want that logic going out there. But here's also something important about his underlying philosophy. Howard Schultz is a self-made billionaire. So this is cut two, him talking about that.
I've also been criticized for being a billionaire. Let's talk about that. I'm self-made. I grew up in the projects in Brooklyn, New York. I thought that was the American dream, the aspiration of America. You're going to criticize me for being successful when in my company over the last 30 years, the only company in America that gave comprehensive health insurance, equity in the form of stock options, and free college tuition, and Elizabeth Warren wants to criticize me for being successful? No.
See, that is the thing. This is a different culture. One of the things that happened in the 60s is you had this culture of the age of Aquarius, but it morphed into the Reagan culture of Wall Street. All those people, remember the bonfire of the vanities in the movie Wall Street with Michael Douglas, of this thing, greed is good. And so those two ideas have kind of come together. We have a much looser, much more promiscuous, much more drug-friendly culture, which is what the hippies wanted. But we also have a culture where during the 90s, during the Clinton era, people got rich and enjoyed getting rich, and they got rich doing things that all of us like Steve Jobs inventing the iPhone and Bill Gates creating the computer revolution, and this guy creating coffee. Where would we be? I mean, I pick on Starbucks because of their silly, political correctness all the time, but where would we be without Starbucks? I live off the stuff. And it's so easy. Most of the people in this country, I truly believe, are probably capitalistic. They want free enterprise. They want to leave other people alone. They don't want to bother transgender people. They don't want to be forced to call them what they don't think they are. They don't want to be forced to cater a gay wedding if it's against their religion. But basically, nobody's kicking down gay people's doors anymore. That's not going to happen. Really, it didn't happen in the past. But yeah, I mean, gay people were excluded. Now, nobody's doing it anymore. They just want to be left alone to have their opinions and have their beliefs. But the left can't do that because they're lying about what they believe, and the power of silence is the power of lies. So here is Obama's speechwriter, John Favreau, as a representative reacting in sheer, absolute panic to Schultz's candidacy.
There's no substantive reason why Howard Schultz couldn't run as a Democrat, which is unfair because, for all the that some people give Bernie Sanders about being an independent and yet running in the Democratic primary, at least Bernie Sanders is running in the Democratic primary and not as an independent, which would everything up.
And pulling us all left.
Mike Bloomberg, same thing. Mike Bloomberg looked at what it would be like to run as an independent, realized he could hurt the Democratic candidate's cause and thus help elect Trump. And so Mike Bloomberg said, all right, are you either running as a Democrat or not at all? These two people, Bernie Sanders and Mike Bloomberg, on very different ends of the spectrum, are both thinking, yeah, we could both run in the Democratic primary and we'll just see if anyone likes our ideas. Howard Schultz thinks that he doesn't have to do that he gets to just run on his own as an independent and do it that way, even if it means hurting the Democratic candidate and helping to reelect Trump. And that's just a awful thing to do.
Now, remember, we're talking about a Democratic Party. He says, it's just be a fair debate of ideas. We're talking about the Democratic Party that squeezed Bernie Sanders out of winning to support Hillary Clinton. And we're talking about a Democratic Party where all the vitality, all the power, all the culture of the Democratic Party is with Alexandria Occasional Cortex. Now, listen, the overreaction to Howard Schultz is helping Howard Schultz. It's brought him into the forefront, just like our overreaction to Alexandria Occasional Cortex has brought her to the forefront. But it's important. It is important to call these people out because they represent the culture. So I want to just play you why Howard Schultz could not run as a Democrat or shouldn't run as a Democrat. Here is AOC talking about identity politics and privilege. Remember Howard Schultz saying, I'm a billionaire. That's a good thing. That's part of the American dream. Here's AOC. This is the first cut 3.
The idea that you can be poor and benefit from the color of your skin does not compute for a lot of people. And going through that realization is very painful, or even just economically for people that were born with silver spoons. It's very painful to admit that you had advantages, and it's just
look what happened to Brett Kavanaugh when he was confronted.
Oh my God! No, it literally is an identity meltdown.
That is an amazing statement, a double amazing statement. She's saying, even if you're poor and you made it, you're a self-made man and you are white, it doesn't matter because you had privilege. And then the guy references Brett Kavanaugh, who got angry when he was falsely accused of raping somebody. I mean, would you not get angry? Who would not get angry at that? But that was an identity breakdown. The idea that the idea that you're not allowed to accuse a white man of a crime that he didn't commit. Where does he get that privilege? What the hell is going on here? But listen to her definition of privilege, and this is why the Democrat Party is going insane. I mean, because as I say, you follow a bad idea, you follow it right down the road into complete insanity. Listen to her definition of privilege. Expand and expand and expand.
It's because if you haven't had a transition in your life where, you were maybe born poor or born without, certain privileges. And then especially as you transition into having certain privileges in your life, you actually see and feel and sense and taste and smell all of the differences. If you've never experienced different treatment in your life, you wouldn't know what different treatment feels like or looks like. And it's really, really hard. I mean, it's like, and we can almost every single person in this country can acknowledge some privilege of some type. Right. I'm a cisgendered woman. I will never know the trauma of feeling like I'm not born in the right body. Mm-hmm. And that is a privilege that I have no matter how poor my family was when I was born. But it's really hard for some people to admit that they, it's part of this weird American dream mythology that we have that in a lot of circumstances isn't as true or isn't as clearly communicated as we'd like for it to be, or we wish it was.
One of the things I have to say about her that really does bother me is the culture of ignorance and stupidity. I don't know if she's stupid, but she's certainly an ignorant woman. She's a woman who knows absolutely nothing and yet talks insistently. And I think that is, I've seen this in her generation of people sort of saying, well, this is the way I feel. This is what this is my point of view. This is my lived experience. Instead of these are the facts, these are the ideas, here's my logic, let me lay out my argument. That really bothers me. But listen to what she said. She said basically, just the fact that she was a straight woman, a cisgender woman, as she put it, was a privilege. So that's basically, telling, and then she said everyone in America has some sort of privilege, in which case, by the way, no one has a privilege. I mean, if everyone has privilege, what difference does it make? What are we going to do? Measure our privilege? Who's going to make that measurement? All that she's saying is you are guilty and therefore all your stuff belong to me. That is what she's saying. What she's telling you is there's something wrong with you. You don't deserve your success. You don't deserve to be doing what you're doing. You don't deserve the good life you have. You need to let me take that and spread that around because you're guilty and I am Alexandria Occasional Cortex. The problem with this is that she didn't make any sense. She was babbling. She did not make any sense. But that moves the Overton window into this nonsensical radicalism where you are supposed to be guilty and have your head hung and not be proud you're an American and not be proud of your accomplishments, not say what Howard Schultz said is, yeah, I'm a billionaire. That's a good thing. That's the battle we're in. It's the culture. And just remember, the majority doesn't win, the culture wins. So if you're not speaking out, if you're not being honest, if you're not promoting your own life and you're not living your life in the way that you believe, you are part of that culture and you are part of the culture that will have the victory in the long run.